Good morning everyone, welcome back to my channel. So video number 4, we are now working on Champagne Garden. So it's the last one in the series for the week, and as I think I've said in previous videos, it looks like they'll do I'll drop a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday video. That just gives me those 2 days to sort of get my head around the prompt that the girls give us and sort of start the process, so at least I can get that Saturday video out, then work on the next one, and the next one. It seems to be working well for me, so that's how I think the videos will roll. Now, I might pop up on a Thursday and just do a recap of all of them from the second week of embroidery. So just to save us time when we get to the actual videos with the prompts in it, I've given you a bit of a quick recap on what's happened on each piece video. So I think that will be the way that I'll move forward, but we'll see how we go. But at the moment, definitely 4 videos per week, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Okay, so Champagne Garden. Well, I've just picked this piece up, and the first thing I felt I needed to do was get some edgings in place. This piece is very, what would you say, rugged, even though the name sort of gives you the impression that it's delicate. It's not. It's like quite chunky. All of the fabrics I've used are very textured. They're hemps, linens, real old sorts of pieces. So I feel like all my stitching on this needs to be quite heavy, not like the Wave Through the Garden, which has lots of tulles and laces and yeah, soft sorts of fabrics. So all of the embroidery that went onto that one was quite delicate. This one I think is going to be quite bold and and chunky, if that's a good way to describe embroidery. Now, I mentioned, I think, in one of the videos that I had this little bit of linen thread left. There's only a little bit there. So I've just cut off a piece, and the first thing I want to do on this panel is just get this overcast stitch onto the edge here, and then we can start thinking about the prompt wildflowers. So far my flowers have been quite whimsical and nothing connected to nature. They've been quite odd looking flowers. So this piece, I remembered that I had a book, the A to Z of embroidery flowers, and the book is full of pieces that little projects that are actual flowers, like in real life. So it was quite an interesting little book. I've completed a few little stitcheries out of it. It's in one of the boxes connected with one of the projects. I'll grab it out, and how that came to be is when we first kicked off for the very first time with the Roxy Journal of Stitchery project, everyone was doing samplers with rows and rows of stitching, different stitches. So I decided that I would have a play while I waited for the first prompt with doing a little sampler of flowers. So it sort of made me think of that the other night. If you're new to the group, go back and find the very first few videos that the girls did, because they went through so many stitches. It was fantastic. It was a really good way of, if you're new, how to do them. If you've been around a bit and you've got a bit of a long tooth like myself, it was a reminder of some stitches that you haven't used for ages. And there were a couple in there that caught my eye, and I'm like, oh, I've always wondered how they did that. There's just so many stitches out there that it doesn't hurt to revisit samplers, because yeah, it just sort of takes you back to the basics again. So go and look out those videos from the girls. I might see if I can find them. Let me make a note of that. I might see if I can find them. Where's some paper? I've never had paper around when I'm working with scrap piece of paper. It's all I need. When I'm working with fabric, I never have paper. So I'll just make a note, sampler, and I'll try and find those videos the girls did and link them below so you can go and have a little look, especially the newbies, because I bet your heads are spinning. I bet you guys are thinking, oh my goodness, what have I done? So the book I'm talking about is this one, and I'll show you the sampler if I can see it quickly. I believe it's sitting in this box with the French garden. I thought I might be able to use it, but no, it's not there. Doesn't matter. I'll find it. It'll turn up at some point. So this little book goes through the name of the flower and then a little stitchery. So I really enjoyed doing this because I actually did the forget-me-nots. Got a post-it note there because it sort of taught me a flower as well. And I remember doing, there we go, I did a daisy. I remember doing the bottle brush, being an Aussie girl. And look at the tulips. There's a drawing in the back to give you a bit more idea of the process goes into the video, into the stitcheries. Look at wisteria. We've got to do some wisteria on our pieces. I know Marianne, my friend, mentioned that she'd love to do some wisteria on a cottage. It'd be beautiful. Now there was a bottle brush and I just could not get that thing to look right until I realised it was all in the position of my stitch. Where are you? It's alphabetical. That'd be a good start. There. This bottle brush. I'll bring it up to the camera. I could not get that to look like that. And then I clicked that all of the little pistil stitches are coming from the one point on the actual stem. And suddenly it just looked like a bottle brush. I need to find this stitchery for you. So what I'm thinking with this particular piece is maybe instead of it being so whimsical, maybe I'll try and do some actual piece. There it is. I've spotted it. Maybe I'll try and do some pieces that that actually look like flowers. So try and keep this piece a little bit more realistic. So these are the ones I did. I did the cornflower, the Queen Anne lace, the daisy, some lavender. I love the lavender and how that little lazy daisy stitch at the very top of the plant, that's not focusing real good, is it? Is just instantly made me think it looked like lavender. And there was like little stitches up the branch as well. It was really good. See, there's the bottle brush. You need, with bottle brush, that little bit of green to appear through the center. And then suddenly my eye said, yep, or my brain said, yep, that's bottle brush. And these little guys, little crocus, hydrangeas. What fun are they? Just lots of French knots. And then the little leaf too, the little satin stitch leaf, and forget-me-nots, classic. So if you're interested in doing some sample stitching and realistic, that's not a bad little side project. So what I'm thinking is let's have a look through and find something that looks real, and like the little forget-me-nots, like that piece there is pretty. Like actually looks like a wildflower. Some of them look very domesticated. Oh, look at the wisteria across an arbor. Keep that one in the back of our minds. We could do an arbor in the garden. Maybe we could do an arbor in the garden. Maybe I could do an arbor in the garden. Put some wisteria over the top of it. Now that's an idea, Corrine. Do I have room for an arbor in the garden? I do. Depending on where do I start my piece. I've got this big piece of texture here, so that's not going to be the easiest. I could start the piece from the top there. No, then my music will be upside down and I'd have to turn it. Maybe we save the arbor. It's a great little arbor. How simple is that? Keep looking. Don't get sidetracked. Wattle. So sort of looking violets. Aren't they gorgeous? Tulips. Oh, aren't they gorgeous? This is a good little book, guys, if you were considering adding a book of realistic flowers. Look at the roses. Oh, I haven't done a lot of grub stitch and that type of work. I was sort of thinking, I know I've never done foxglove. And I spotted it a few seconds ago and I thought that's a plant. There's a hydrangea. That's a plant that I've never actually, hollyhock. Oh, look at that. There's an English garden. I'm wondering, I'm wasting time here. I'm wondering if I could do some foxglove. I love the forget-me-nots, but I love those satin stitched leaves. I think I'm going to do forget-me-nots, but they'll be like in amongst some elements, I think. So I've got some real flowers mixed in amongst it, I think. These are very domesticated flowers, so they're sort of not in the brief. Wildflowers, daisies could be. Okay, a garden that is not tended to, like mine at times, could be classed, cornflowers, could be classed as a wildflower collection. I'm thinking it's going to be forget-me-nots, but I think the thing I'm noticing here with these flowers is everything is very delicate and fine. And I think this piece, let's put that away for a moment. I think this piece is going to need a bit of chunkiness. Now, I did have out this doily, and I thought I could take him out, sort of get some foundation pieces, and then do some embroidery over those. So these pieces would be at the back. So I'm going to stay with that original plan, and I'm going to get in there and nibble this guy out, fussy cut him out. I've just wasted 13 minutes. Goodness me. How am I going to get anything achieved? It's quite early in the morning, and I must say my brain feels a little foggy. I only had one sip of my coffee, so that's probably why I'm fiddling around. And I was lying there thinking, what will I stitch on this piece? It's got to be a little bit different. And I thought maybe try and do some, realistic embroidery. These little elements, they're just sort of fill. They're sort of nearly part of the background of everything. Sort of set the tone, if you will, the colour scheme. And this one's champagne, so it's going to be very neutral with a pop of metallic threads. So if you're cutting out a fussy cut of embroidery from some random table runner or doily or something, and you feel like the base fabric is going to fray on you, of course you're going to, stitch it down with an overcast stitch. But if you're a little bit worried that it might sort of drift on you, you can do a couple things. You could iron it onto some fusible webbing and then stitch it down. That would, provide that stability to the piece, especially if it's something quite delicate that you want to do attach. That's one option, but it will make the piece very stiff to get your needle through. And if you're doing a lot of work, after a while, it really knocks your joints around in your fingers. You get very sore fingers because you've got that resistance. You're pushing through the glue and the webbing. Something else that I sometimes use is art glitter glue. It is okay for fabric, and I drizzle the tiniest little amount on the very edge. Fray Check is a product out there. I don't see much of that in Australia. It is around, but it's very expensive too for a tiny little bottle. And it's got a funny little nib on it that you run the edge of that nib around your piece. So what I might do, this one feels like it is going to scoot around a little bit on me. So I might just run a little edge of art glitter glue. Now I need some paper, or at least a piece of plastic. So all I'm going to do is I just want the tiniest of amounts just around that edge, and it'll just catch the fabric. You could use glue stick. The only one in Australia that I found good for fabric is the blue glue stick, which I get from Officeworks, and the brand is Study Mate. It's actually designed for kids at school, but it's pretty good glue. So that's one of my go-to glues. I'm getting too much glue on this edge. And if you're a quilter, you may be familiar with the glue sticks that they use when they're paper piecing or folding over little edges. They'll use a glue little stick to sort of tack things down. It's not bad too, it's just expensive. It can get away on you if you're doing a lot of stitching. Those little glue sticks can be a bit expensive because you've got to buy your little refills, and they're tiny. I've got a couple here on my desk, and I don't use them a lot. They tend to mush up really quickly too, so I don't feel like I'm getting much distance for my money. Okay, so I've got a little smearing of art glitter glue there. You can already see it starting to disintegrate. It's just one of those types of doilies that it just, what are we going to do here? I think that hard fabric there is going to be quite difficult to stitch onto, so I think I'll use my flower to sort of position there, and I'm just going to tap it down, and then that can be stitched into place. And that little bit of residue glue that is there can go straight down to the fabric, and that's not going to go anywhere. So just another way of getting your pieces onto your work. Now I'll just show you the glue stick if you're wondering what I was talking about for the Australian girls. That's it there from Officeworks. You can get them in packs of 5. There's 2 different sizes. I think there's a 25 gram and a 35 gram. Just watch your pricing because sometimes it's cheaper to buy them singly. And this is Soline. It's the little quilters one that, you wind it up and there's a little stick of glue in there that comes out. But it's not a cheap way of gluing. Okay, so there's our feature flower. Now, I know I want to do some forget-me-nots, so I could even do some wisteria around the top here. The other thing I grabbed out is this piece. I feel like I could use some of this. I don't want any pink. I don't mind that it's on tulle, because that'll help sort of put a little bit of softness to my piece. I'd probably leave all that tulle in position. I like the fact that there's white popping up on here. So if I do maybe some baby's breath with some little white French knots, that could work. It's so big and chunky. I don't mind it there. Yeah, that's all right. Okay, I'll just pop a pin in. I will need to get in behind there and stitch this little guy down with that overcast stitch just to protect him and hold him in position. Oh, I like that. So we've got this little subtle guy at the back. We've got a big chunky bloke at the front. So what are we going to do next? Remember I had that braid that was falling apart? This one. I wonder if I could couch some of this on. What I might do is I might just cut this piece off, and I'm going to just put a little bit of tape around that before it unravels completely and all I have is strands of nothing. And now the sticky tape is not complying. Oh, come on. How does this all end up in just a complete tangent? Let's just put that aside because I'm wasting time on that. I wonder if that wisteria was quite viney. Is that a word? I'm just going to trim that. It's fraying, and I might put a little bit of art glitter glue on that end just to hold those fibres from fraying anymore. I wonder if I can vine that through and then do a bit of wisteria or something across the top there. I think I can. So that would be a case of just couching that on. Let's put the lid back on the art glitter glue. Gee, we're getting some beautiful pieces coming through. They're just all amazing. It's, I just love opening up the site that the girls have. If you don't realise there's a site, there's a Facebook site called Roxy's Journal of Stitchery. And please show your work there because it's such a good group. I don't know, the girls have deleted any negative comments really quickly, I'm not sure, but I haven't noticed any myself, and it's such a great space to be in. Everyone's so encouraging and it's really, really fun. So I'm just doing a little stitch to catch that piece of cordage, and I'm sort of just letting it do its thing because I could not get those shapes, those organic shapes, if I tried. I think I sort of like how it's wriggling around, and I'll just go with it. So there's going to be some wisteria at the top. Drop my needle and thread. So that will look really cool. Do they make great tendrils? I don't know what the word is. I need more coffee so then I can speak. That's really cool. Might just get it to curl. It wants to sit like that, so I might just pop a stitch in just to hold it. That seems to be where it wants to go. And I'll come back later and put more stitches in there to really anchor that down, but that's a bit of an idea anyway. And I sort of don't mind the fact that that just sits like that. This is getting a little abstract. Okay. Well, that would have just been chopped off and put in the bin. It now has a home and it will become something. So I'm just going to put probably one more stitch. So I won't go into how I would stitch this because it'll just be little colonial knots. And if you're unsure on how to do a colonial knot, just type it into YouTube and you'll find an explanation. And I believe they're in the samplers that I was referring to of Rachel's. So you'll be able to find it somewhere. And then just cluster them, and I'll be thinking along the lines of a bunch of grapes as I do it. So I might even bead them. Find some little seed beads and it'll be like a triangular shape. So yeah, like a bunch of grapes. All right, so that's in position. So that's a nice base piece. We've got our flowers there. Now, the little clusters would be along the lines of, you know, just building a triangular shape of beads and French knots to create that dropping effect that wisteria is. Let's have a look at that wisteria again. There we go. So I could even play with colour a little bit and do darker knots down to lighter knots. That would be gorgeous. And there it is again. So it's quite a viney little, see, look at that. Like what's, wow. That literally, anyway, it was meant to be. Now, what else are we going to do here? I think we could start thinking about something down in here. Maybe that's where we start looking at the forget-me-nots. So, do I want to do forget-me-nots? What do I want to do? What's stopping me is it's so chunky and the forget-me-nots are so fine. I think they're probably better on that champagne piece. Not the champagne, the wave of colour. Let's have a look at some of these little morsels in here. I just spotted that out the corner of my eye. I think, yeah. I don't think I can do that soft embroidery. I think that wildflowers, the realistic flower idea actually needs to go to the wave of colour because it's sitting on laces and tulles and things like that. I just spotted that. Got some daisies. I think this needs to be more chunky. So let's have a little look here. What have we got here? This is a little braid that I picked up. I don't know where. And it's got like leather strapping in there. But we have these orange flowers. Can they be removed? I'm just going to give that a little tug. It looks like the machine has caught it in the braiding. And I have a feeling it goes right through. It does. But maybe we can disguise the fact that it's there by getting rid of the real obvious piece of orange. I'm going to see it. I'm going to see that orange popping out at me. Do we use the little flowers? Do they come off? Let's have a look. I think I could get them off. Yep. There we go. Nice chunky little dainty flowers. Is that a good sentence? Let's get ourselves 3 of those. Let's pop that away. I think they suit our colour scheme. And maybe we have a nibble at this lace here. And I was just looking at my bucket of bits here. I just grab that. Pieces like that can add texture, and that. This is off of a blouse, an edge of a blouse, and that's all I've got left of it. It's one of my favourite pieces. That's just a doily, but what I look for in that is I like the netting in that. It sort of adds interest to pieces. This here sort of feels like a garden path. I wonder if we could pop that down as well. Why not? I haven't done a path yet. I've got a piece of embroidery in one of those boxes. I can't remember, there's too many boxes. That is a garden path-ish, cobblestone-ish sort of look. So I think it's the splash of colours where I'm using all the doilies and the embroidery that I've got in amongst those. One of the doilies had cobblestones on them. Now this piece is snipped in a few places, so it's a break there and a break there, but that's not going to matter because I can put a few little stitches in place to bring that back together. And if I can tuck that under there, that gets rid of one of the breaks, so you'd never know it was there, and it'll be reinforced by that flower. And then it's a case of maybe we just have a hint of a path. Don't want it to take up too much room because these little snippet sized ones, they're not real big. So it's sort of, I'm going to run out of room if I get too crazy with paths. I'd rather be embroidering flowers and whatever else the girls throw our way than a path. But I'm happy to have that there for now. I may even cut it and have a piece pop up further down. Might be a good idea because that's all I've got, so that'll help, you know, stretch it out a little bit. And I think those little flowers will go somewhere like that. Let's have a look at this lace, as it's got lots of little flowers on it. Those little daisies in a row, let's grab a little piece of that. They'd look good along the edge of a path. And then what I'll do is with my embroidery, go back through and maybe pop some little pearls in the center of the flowers, or I might find a creamy fawny sort of color in the embroidery threads and put a French knot in the center of them all, just so it brings them into the piece, like using one of those pearlized threads. And if I put a little French knot in the center of them all, I could even do some little spikes like a wheel. I do need to get some stitching in behind all these elements too, because if you recall, I want to do a lot of this edging on all of these pieces. So there's a little bit of work in behind here, but I'm thinking we're on the right path. Maybe just stab them into position. I can put one on the break and maybe one up here. What else have we got here that we could utilise? This will be a good little piece then that could drift through the whole thing. Just the one lace, and it pops up randomly around the place. Sort of helps get you some continuity. Look at that little edge there. That's gorgeous. So if I did a little house, that would make a fantastic fence line. So I'm just going to grab one of these little daisies out. I feel like I could go higher and have some little daisies peeking around the top here. So when I sort of think of wildflowers, they tend to be in mass, don't they? So maybe we can do a bit of a spray of daisies in the distance. Up in a back paddock, there are little white weedy daisies growing. And then do some embroidery of little daisies in around them. So that's got potential. I might just stab them with a pin just to hold them. Because what I'll need to do with this one, because my background is still needing a little bit of work, I'll take a photo of all of these little bits and then come back and piece it together. Let's grab one of these bigger ones out. So if you can find yourself some floral, flower-filled laces, they'll go a long way. You only need a little bit. Just get 20 centimetres of it. So this is a bigger. They can start sneaking down into here, I think. They'll really pop on that gold fabric by the looks of it. Okay. I think I'll merge them into that piece a little bit so that they'll look like they're part of that piece of tulle embroidery. I could pop a few over this side. That'll thicken up nicely. I'm happy with that. Now, what else could we add to it? You sort of want to have air in your piece too. So some of these places here, just let them be, because it allows the eye to see that there's something happening here, unless of course you want your work to be just absolutely chockers with, you know, detail. but you might find that you need space for other things too, that the Roxy girls give us, these prompts. It can be a bit tricky knowing what's coming, what's yet to come, and how much space, because you could just keep going and fill your piece just on the wildflowers prompt. It's such a great prompt, and I think it'll pop up all the time through your piece. You'll put in a structure or something. Depends what the girls give us. It might be very flower orientated. It might be, there might be birds, a little animal, I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. I've just cut this out. I feel like I could do more with this big feature piece. So I'm just going to get some glue on that edge before I get ahead of myself. I like when I can pull apart a piece of embroidery and stretch it out into other locations. And you sort of feel like you're getting more value for your money. And I'm wondering if, just trying to get a lid on that, if I can maybe make it look like it's coming out of the top of this, but I want to have room for my wisteria, so maybe I can just sneak it in there. I feel like I'm going to take those daisies out. I feel like it could tuck in there. And then maybe it's got to go under the wisteria tentacles, like that. Yeah. So it's still in the background, but it's sort of coming out from behind that piece. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Now I pulled out a little daisy, so let's get him back into a position we like. Yeah. Happy with that. And then I can still edge this piece behind here, maybe with just a running stitch, so that can be still an embroidered feature coming in behind there. Yeah. And then I'll do an overcast stitch on this guy so it's really obvious. I could come back later and do seed stitch through all these areas, or maybe I'll start thinking about doing some, where's that crocus? That would be, because it's quite a thick, where's my piece of embroidery? This is quite a thick, that's a thick looking little flower, and I used quite a heavy cordage. So maybe I'll pop some crocus tend to just pop up everywhere. I could get a couple little crocus in there, I think. Just as a little background flower, just a little detail. Only noticed when you're really looking at the piece. And if that moves over a bit, I'd have a bit of room. And that crocus can be in there. Yeah, so there'll be a little tuft of crocus appear there. Okay, so I did get one realistic flower in, but I think they have to be quite heavy flowers so that they can hold their own in amongst all of this, because it's quite chunky. these pins laying down now. These little daisies down the bottom here with the little pearls in the centre. I might look at linking them somehow with other pearls and maybe some gold thread to get that champagne feeling in there. I've got that thread to work through it as well. And I even have the gold version of it, so I definitely want to get a bit of sparkle through, but that's pretty good. Got a little path. Where was that flower I just picked up? I might as well find a home for you, my little flowery friend. I think we have a plan. Maybe we'll put some buttons in this one because it's so chunky. Just cannot get that pin to go through there without. Okay. Let's have a look for some linen buttons. Just hold for a second. I just want to grab one more thing. Okay. So I've got some linen covered buttons. And I'm thinking this piece could handle that. So they're a couple different sizes. Maybe I can just sort of pop them in and around. They're so old and discoloured. They're fantastic. They certainly don't have a new look about them. I've got to get that little wire out, but maybe we work a few little, put the bigger buttons down the bottom, smaller buttons at the top, just to add a little bit of interest. Yeah, that will work. There's that rogue flower that went walkabout on me, so let's get him snipped. Oh look, the little bottom looks like it's actually got a leaf. Just pop him over there. As we slowly build up. I don't like those three together there. They sort of look a little bit clumsy. All right, I'm happy with that. We'll get some wisteria happening in the top. Up here. Some crocus down here. And then the wildflowers coming up through, and I'll be able to bead them and do some additional stitching. And I've got a path starting, so I'm pleased about that. And it gives me little pockets here that to do something. I can come down the side here, so that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. I didn't end up needing this particular lace, so we'll pop that away. This is going to be handy to have, I think, because they'll drift through the whole piece. There's a few more little elements on here that I could. What about that leaf? I think I'm going to poke that up the top, the very top of it. Sorry, I was concentrating. I've stopped yibby-yabbering. Okay, let's have that poking out the very top here. It needs to be shorter. There's too much stem, I think. It can go under there a little. Yep, that's good. Happy with that. That frames that little area at the top there for some wisteria. Beautiful. Very good. Okay. All right, everyone. Gee, where does the time fly? Just seriously, could spend hours fiddling around with this. So I'll bring that up to the camera so you can see the plan of attack. We've got some foliage sneaking up around the place. We've got a bit of a feature flower, then a second piece in there. Some little ones popping in just to soften the whole image. We've got a path, some little daisies there with pearls in them, and then there'll be more pearls go through. Yeah, that'll push pearls into this piece. Okay, very good. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for sitting with me as I try and piece together something. It looks like I have a plan. All right, off to go and do some stitching. Thank you very much, guys, and have a lovely day, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye. Hi, guys, I'm back. I was tidying up the project and getting everything onto my wool mat here to embroider in the next room, and this piece is off of a doily that someone's crocheted this gorgeous little edge on the edge of this doily, and it's got a shimmer about the cotton. It's just beautiful, real pearly, and I thought that would be gorgeous on this piece. So I'm thinking, and I've got a little bit of felt that's showing here, so I'd really like to trim that back or disguise it or do something with it because I don't want to see it. So I'm thinking of putting this little element on the side. So I've just got to lift it very carefully, and this will go in as well. So I'll trim back that felt so it just pushes it back in, and then I'm going to stitch that as well on the side. I think be a great way to pop a little piece of that beautiful embroidery, not embroidery, crocheting. So I'll just put that there for now so you can get the look of it. It's Bandit woofing. Something going on. Must be a walker coming down the street. There we go. Just pretend that that's straight there, straightish, and it'll sort of match what I've got on the other side. I've got this little piece of lace coming out here as well, so that's going to be added to the border. All right, I will leave you alone now. I just thought I'd come back and show you that. So yeah, might be something you could consider for your piece. All right, everyone, bye for now.